now we deal with data, or I call them the variables. Now, to test the hypothesis or the hypothesis, plural, we need to measure variables. Kailangan, there must be a way for you not to measure the variables. Why do we call them the variables? Like, for example, gender. Is it a variable? Yes. Age. Is it a variable? Yes. Civil status. Is it a variable? Yes. Why? Because variables are things that can change or vary. Like if I ask you, how old are you? 26. Another respondent, how old are you? 27. Another answers 28, 29. Okay? It varies. It changes. That's why we call them data. I ask it, oh, what's your gender? Male, female, male, female. So it varies, no, for every respondent. So this data, we call them the variables. Okay, so it says here, variables may vary between people. No, like for example, no, one person has an IQ that is different from the IQ of another person. One person has a behavior that is different from the behavior of other people. Or we can have this locations. Example, unemployment rate in Manila is different from unemployment rate in Pampanga. Okay? Or even time. Let us say, for example, the mood. No, you can have different moods, no, in various in various times, in different times. Okay? Or let's say, for example, for businesses, no, yung profit niya this year may be different from the profit next year, from the other year, etc., etc. Okay? Now, in our introduction, we talk about variables, no? And we classified them first into independent and dependent variable. Independent variable is IV, no? Dependent variable is DV. IV is the cause. DV is the effect. Now, let us say, for example, ano yung example natin kanina? Investigating the effects of training on the job satisfaction of teachers. Training is the independent variable, no? And job satisfaction is the dependent variable. So I'll define independent variable. A variable thought to be the cause of some effect. It denotes a variable that the experimenter manipulates. Oh, that's another thing to take note. No? Ang pinapalitan natin yung independent variable. And then, nagkakaroon siya ng effect on the dependent variable. Okay, what about a dependent variable? This is the effect or the outcome. A variable thought to be affected by changes in an independent variable. No? Okay. I'll mention the equation, but you don't need to worry about it. No? So the equation here is y is equals to a plus bx, where y stands for the dependent variable, no? And then bx stands for the independent variable, a being the constant. Ayan. Pwede mo siyang i-disregard. No? Okay. Now, another terms, no, that we use for independent, no, we use the predictor variable. The predictor variable is the independent variable. The outcome variable is the dependent variable. Okay. Sir, question, pwede bang yung demographic factors, can they be independent variables? Yes, pwede. Di ba may mga research na ganun? Like for example, what's the effect of gender? No, that's a demo, no, demographic. Gender on the performance of students in Baliwalu High School. On the academic performance of students in Baliwalu High School. Let's say, for example. No, that's your research. No, so gender. Or let's say, for example, what is the effect of social economic status on the academic performance of students? No, social economic status serves as your independent variable. Okay? Now, when we deal with data, we deal with the levels of measurement. Ayan. So, every now and then, maririnig mo ako, sasabihin ko nominal, ordinal, interval, ratio. Pero mas madalas, ang sasabihin ko na lang, categorical or continuous. Okay? Variables can take on many different forms and levels of sophistication. So pag sinasabi kong level of sophistication, parang sinasabi ko mas accurate siya doon. No? Okay. Nakikita niyo yung table. So sa tingin mo, sino ang pinaka mas accurate ang measurement? Ito si ratio variable. Okay? Now, before I go here, it says here that in general, variables can be categorical. When I say categorical, non-numbers or continuous, the numbers, and can have different levels of measurement. Okay. Now, what are examples of categorical variables? Let us say, for example, you ask for the gender. Now, that's a categorical variable. Gender. Kasi ang sasagot niya, male or female. No? And that is a categorical variable that is considered a binary or a dichotomous. Kasi on, off, dead or alive, pass or fail, by or not by. Nakita nyo? Guys, nakuha nyo ba yung ibig sabihin ng binary variable? It's a categorical variable. No? So ang sagot, dalawa lang. No? On, off, 0, 1. Did you get that? That's a binary categorical variable. Public, private. On, off. That's a binary categorical variable. Okay? Next. What if the categorical variable has more than 2? Like for example, I ask, what are the different social economic status? So meron kang low economic status, middle economic status, and high economic status. Ang tawag sa kanila, nominal. No? So what's the level of measurement for nominal? No? So sinasabi niya, we have the category and we have the label of the variable. What's the label? No, social economic status. What are the categories, no, of social economic status? The high, the middle, and the low. At kasama sa nominal dito, yung sinasabi ko kanina, what if there are only 2? No, which we call what? The binary or dichotomous variable, male or female. Yun lang ang kanyang category. No, pero syempre, depende sa iyo yan. Like for example, you can argue with me, no? Like for example, sir, for gender, can we add another one? It depends on you, no, kung ano yung gusto mong gamitin. You can always argue on that, di ba? In fact, I see some survey questions, like for example, they ask for the civil status. So hindi lang siya single married, nagdadagdag pa sila. Tapos averse, sabi pa nila. Okay? Now, there's also what we call here ordinal, no? Ordinal, from the term, what's the root word? Order. Now, this is another, yung ordinal, it's another categorical variable. Like, for example, when we were in high school, we call ourselves first year, second year, third year, fourth year. Diba? That is a categorical variable. For example, first honor, second honor, third honor. Okay. Meron siyang order. Like for example, yung bang first honor, are you saying na doble siya sa galing kay second honor? Hindi naman, di ba? Orderly lang yung presentation natin. First, second, third. For example, Miss Universe, first runner-up, second runner-up, third runner-up. Ayan. Hindi mo sinasabi na si Miss Universe winner, no, doble ang galing at ganda niya kay first runner-up. Pero ganun yung order na pinapresent siya. Okay? That's ordinal, another categorical variable. Okay? So, nag-i-improve yung level of measurement natin. No? Other than categorizes and labels variables, meron siyang ranks categories in order. And a very good example of ordinal variables are the Likert scales. Di ba tayo mga researchers, no? We deal with Likert scales. What's an example of a Likert scale? Let us say, for example, a 5-point Likert scale. Anong ibig sabihin ni 5? Sasabihin mo, strongly agree, 4 is agree, 3 is neutral, 2 is disagree, 1 is strongly disagree. That's a 5-point, the Likert scale. And a Likert scale is an example of ordinal variable. Okay? Now, the other two on the right side, si interval at saka si ratio, these are continuous variables. No? Ito yung numbers. No? Sila si numbers. Okay. Now, let's say, for example, no, how much is your monthly salary? Interval or ratio? No? Okay. So, for the interval and the ratio, we'll have more accurate, no, way of measurement. So, sinasabi dito has known equal intervals. Okay, like for example, you ask for the age, no, you ask for the temperature, etc. Okay. Now, anong pagkakaiba ngayon ni interval at saka ni ratio? Ang pagkakaiba ni interval at saka ni ratio, si ratio, no, continuous variable, has a true, has a meaningful zero, has an absolute zero, which is the absence of number. Let us say, for example, I ask, no, how much is your monthly salary? And you are unemployed, diba? So, anong sagot mo? Zero. You don't have a monthly salary. Diba? There is the absence of monthly salary. Your answer is zero. It is an absolute zero. But wait, sir. No? Meron bang zero na hindi absence of number? Yes. If I ask you, no, this is an example of interval. If I ask you of the temperature, no, you said, oh, what's the temperature in Baguio? It's 0 degrees Celsius. Is that the absence of temperature? Yung 0. Is 0 degrees Celsius? Celsius ba o centigrade or whatever? Celsius, centigrade. Is it the absence of the temperature? No. Because I know that 0 degrees Celsius stands for freezing point. No? Okay. Yun ang pagkakaiba ni interval at saka ni ratio. Ratio has an absolute zero. Interval has none. Okay? So, let's have them one by one again para maintindihan natin lalo. Categorical variables, the entities are divided into distinct categories. Okay, I mentioned, no? Binary variable, there are only two categories, dead or alive, male or female. What else? Single, married. Can you give another example of a binary variable? Ano pa? Who knows? Public, private, what else? Ano pa? On, off.
Yes or no, sir?
O si Christine. Christine.
Yes or no, sir?
Yes or no.
Sir, left and right.
Si ano, si Jesus.
Left and right po, sir.
Ano yon?
Left or right?
Yeah, left or what direction? Left or right? Ayan. Si Danica. Ayan.
Present, absent, sir.
Yeah, present or absent. Ayan. So, ang isa pang napansin mo kapag yung categorical variable, kapag nandun siya sa isang category, hindi mo siya dapat, di ba? Kasi you are either present or absent, di ba? Yun ang ating mga categorical variables. Okay? Kahit ito lang guys, no, ang dadali nyo sa thesis, no, yung mga variables para medyo naman, impressive, no? Okay. O ito, let's have examples of nominal variables. Other than, ako palagi sinasabi yung yung social economic status, diba? Pero di ba pwede rin yung mga like yung mga programs, yung mga high school programs, ano yun, ABM, 4 yata or 5? Di ba that's nominal? Or what's an example for nominal variables? Give examples for nominal variables. O let's say for example, you ask for the religion. Eh, hindi lang naman dalawa yung religion, di ba? So normal sasabihin mo, Catholic ba yan? Iglesia ni Cristo? O tapos meron pang iba, di ba? Okay. O tapos maybe on the last option, lalagay mo others. So that's a nominal variable. Okay. Now, what about ordinal variable? Okay, the same as a nominal variable, but the categories have a logical order. So, halimbawa dito, sabi niya, fail, pass, merit with distinction. Pwede pala dito yung mga Latin honors, summa cum laude, magna cum laude, cum laude. That's an ordinal variable. But as I told you, the best example for ordinal variable will be our Likert scales. Ayan. Ano ba yung ginagamit ng Likert scales? Mahilig ba kayo sa 5, 4, or 3? Gumagamit ba kayo ng mga Likerts?
Yung pong ano yun na sir, no? Yung strongly agree.
Yes, ayan. So dapat masanay na tayo sa mga yan, di ba? Okay, sa mga Likert skills. Guys, isang tip lang kapag nagbasa ka ng journal, ang hahanapin mo ngayon, yung mayroong instruments. Di ba? Or normally, nandun sa reference, kung saan niya kinapi. Kasi di ba we don't do naman our own questionnaires. Di ba? Kasi ang dami ng existing literature. Like for example, I want to measure organizational commitment. There are questionnaires already. No, I want to measure job satisfaction. There are questionnaires already. Okay. So ngayon lang may nagpadala sa akin student galing sa MAED yun tapos nag-MBA. So I don't know kung ako yung advisor pero nagtatanong na siya. So iba naman yung sinasabi niya. So meron siyang employee empowerment, meron siyang mga teamwork, lahat doon measurable. No, meron tayong mga questions tapos meron tayong Likert. Pero tip lang, no? Kapag kinapi mo siya dun sa journal na pinakuhanan mo, 5-point Likert skill, huwag mo siyang palitan. No, average kasi ginagawa nila. I don't know if it was it has become a practice. Pero kinwestiyon na ng isang panel to So ngayon hindi na rin siya ginagawa dito sa atin, no. Dinatnan ko kasi dito, tinanggal si 5, ginawang 1, 2, 3, 4. Kasi daw yung mga sumasagot nandun sa 3. Pero sabi naman nung panelist, why force the respondent to answer yung agree, disagree, or strongly agree, strongly disagree. Talaga ayaw sumagot Gusto niya neutral, di ba? But pino-force mo siya dun sa sumagot sa agree at saka disagree. So the thing is, if the questions were written, dun sa mga original offers ng questions na yun, using a 5-point Likert scale. If you do it on your research, use a 5-point Likert scale. Huwag mong pinapalitan yung converting it from 5 to 4. No, don't do that. No, kasi may mga panelists na mahigpit sa ganun. Okay? Ayun. Ito pala. So Danica answered HUMS. Do you read that HUMS? HUMSS, TVI, and STEM. Ano nga yung STEM?
Sir, STEM po yung special, kasi acronym. Para po yun sa mga gusto mag-engineering, sir. Ganun.
So we have 4. We have 4 pala, no?
We have 4. We have TVL.
5
we
po,
have
sir.
you.
5. Ayan.
Including,
Ano yung isa?
Sports po.
Meron din sports.
Sir, may question po ako.
Yes, yan. Si Jamie ba yun? Si Jamie.
Yes po, sir.
Yes,
Let's say, for
Jamie.
example po, sir, yung mga designation po, is it under nominal po? Let's say, for example, teacher 1, teacher 2. Is it under nominal po ba or ordinal?
No, actually, kung meron siyang order, like sinasabi mo, teacher 1, teacher 2, teacher 3, ano yun, di ba? Based on ranking ba yun? Tama.
Designation po, sir.
But when do you, sino mas mataas? Si 3 or si 2?
3 po, sir.
Ayan, ano yun? It's more of ordinal.
Ordinal po siya nun, sir. Okay po, sir. Thank you po.
Kasi mas mataas si 3 kay 2. Hindi ka mukha, for example, you ask for the, ano lang, yung gender. No? Male, female. Hindi mo sinasabi male is better than female. No? Okay. Next. Now we go to continuous variables. Now, continuous variables may either be interval or ratio. Ano pagkakaiba ng dalawa except that they both deal with numbers? No, si ratio variable has an absolute 0. What's an example of internal? So, temperature. Like 0 degrees C, no, it doesn't mean the absence of temperature. Okay? Now, let's discuss more the nominal variables. Okay, so it says here, the nominal scale or the nominal variable is the first level of measurement. No, and it is the simplest. No, it classifies and labels variables qualitatively. And sometimes, no, yung categorical variables, sometimes we call them the qualitative variables because it classifies and labels variables qualitatively. Okay, so let us have the examples here. Let's say, for example, you ask for the eye color. So, meron siyang blue, meron siyang brown, meron siyang green. Okay, next. If you ask for the type of smartphone, or one answers iPhone, the other answers Samsung, meron bang Moto? Ayan. Oh, and then, for example, what's the mode of transportation? One took the bus, the other one train, the other one car. Now, itong nasa baba, this is very important. No? It says here, how is nominal data analyzed? Ayan. Ina-analyze natin using a frequency distribution and mode. And the non-parametric tests are, and then we will use what? Non-parametric statistical tests. So wag muna yon. Dito muna tayo. It says here, when using the nominal scale, bear in mind that there is no order to the groups. No, one category is not higher than, better than, or greater than another. Okay, next. So these are the examples of nominal variables or nominal data. Nominal data describes certain attributes or characteristics. Example, eye color. What else? You ask for the nationality. You ask for the personality type. Are you an introvert, extrovert, sorry, and then ambivert. Yeah, I don't know what ambivert is. Employment status, are you unemployed? Are you part-time? Are you retired? Or what's your political party? Ayan. Are you party ni BBM? Party ni Lenny? Party ni, what's the other one? Pacquiao. Ayan. Type of smartphone owned, no? Owned. Is it an iPhone? Is it a Samsung or a Google Pixel? So clear na tayo sa nominal, no, variable. Okay. Now, descriptive statistics for nominal variable. Ayan. So medyo umuusad na tayo. It says here, descriptive statistics describe or summarize the characteristics of your data set. Two useful descriptive statistics for nominal data are. So you have the frequency distribution and then you have the mode. Oh guys, so don't ask for what's the mean of the gender. May ganun eh. May nakikita akong mga research papers na ganun eh. Eh di ba gender is a categorical variable? Di ba? May nilagay ba akong ano dito? Mean. Sinasabi mo, the average male, the average female. O, hindi ko sinasabing the average male, the average female. Ang tinatasabi ko, how many are males and how many are females? Or what percentage are the males and what percentage are the females. Ganun mo siyang i-report sa research paper mo. Hindi mo sinasabing, what's the average male? No, what's the average female? Eh, paano kung nakuha mo 55.5? Meron bang 55.5% average male? O walang ganon. Ha? Okay. So, what is a frequency distribution table? Ito yun, yung nakikita niyo dito.
Nag-uutak this.
Ayan, this is the frequency distribution table. It summarizes how many responses there were for each category. For example, no, how many people selected brown hair? How many selected blondie? And so on. You can also use percentages rather than count, in which case your table will show you what percentage of the overall sample has what color here. Example here. No, let's say for example here, you have auburn, black, blondie, brown, gray, and white. So pwede mong i-present na ganito. No, yung alin, yung categorical variable. So, how many answered auburn? 14. How many answered black? 23. How many answered blondie? 23. Okay? So, by the way, yung hair color, ano to? This is a nominal categorical variable. Eh kung binary to, male, female lang. So, how many answered male? How many answered female? Now, other than numbers, no, can you instead present, no, your table in the form of percentages? Pwede rin. Like for example, 14 over 129. So auburn gets 10.85%. 23 over 129. So you have here 17.83%. And then blondie, 23 over 129, and so on and so forth. That is a frequency distribution table. Okay, next. What about the other descriptive statistic, which is mode? Anong ibig sabihin ng mode? No? Ito yung most frequent. So the mode is a measure of central tendency, and it is the value that appears most frequently in your data set. Like for example, now which of the hair colors has the highest number? Alin?
Gray po.
Gray.
Gray,
So
sir.
the mode is 38. Did you get that? Ito lang ang pwede natin gawin sa nominal. I repeat, ito lang. Kaya nga dun sa level of measurement, pinakamababa si nominal eh. Kasi ito nga lang ang pwede mong gawin sa nominal. Frequency distribution and mode. Okay? Next. Ano raw ang non-parametric test na pwede mong gamitin kay nominal? Okay? So, I mentioned kanina, we are going to study chi-square. No? Okay. What's a chi-square test of independence and a chi-square goodness of fit test? No? I'll read them. No? Ito, hindi siya kaya ng software natin eh. Pero ito yung chi-square test of independence, ito kaya siya ng software natin. But nevertheless, let's try to read this. No? The chi-square goodness of fit test, if you're looking at just one variable. So you're not comparing it with other variables. No? Ang sinasabi lang niya dito, you want to know if the sample represents, no, the whole population. That's a chi-square goodness of fit test. This one we are going to demonstrate it, no, in our softwares, by using our softwares. It says here it explores the relationship between two nominal variables. Like for example, I want to know if there is a relationship, no, between gender and the academic program. Kapag lalaki ba, more on, meron ba siyang sariling academic program na pinupuntahan? Or kapag babae ba, more on ABM ba yung pinupuntahan niya? Okay, that's a chi-square test of independence. At pwede mo siyang gawin for nominal variables. No? So hindi mo sinasabi, what's the correlation between gender, no, and academic program? No, because these are both categorical variables. What you do is not correlation. What you do is chi-square. Okay? Another one. Ayan. O, yung ordinal variable. Ano nga yung ordinal? Yung best example natin, yung mga Likerts. Ayan. There are other examples, no? It says here, school grades. Like for example, A, B, C. Education level, bachelor's, master's, doctoral. Ayan. Ito pang isa, junior, mid, senior. Okay. It says here, no, that although the ordinal level of measurement is more precise than the nominal scale, it is still a qualitative measure and thus not as precise or informative as the interval and ratio scales. But guys, dun sa last slide ko, okay, you will find out, no, that even ordinals, di ba, sabi ko yung mga Likert scales, yung 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these are not actually numerical variables. Di ba yung 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Kasi for example, one answers 5, strongly agree. Another one answers 4, agree. Mame-measure mo nga ba talaga kung anong difference ni 5 kay 4? Yung nagsabi ng strongly agree at saka agree. Hindi naman, di ba? So ranking lang talaga yung 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ang problema, yung paggamit ng mga statistical software, so how else? No? Can you do regressions? Kung ang regression, mahigpit na ang gagamitin niya, numbers lang, yung mga continuous variables. Sabi nga natin, yung mga Likerts, ordinal variable lang yan. Diba? So pagdating natin sa dulo, so I will tell you, since Likerts are ordinal, no, pwede mo rin lang sila ngayon gamitin as continuous variables. Yun yung sinasabing ambiguities, no? Ambiguities ng mga variables. But for now here, so sasabihin natin, no, ordinals are categorical variables. At ito lang ang pwede natin gawin. No? Ang pwede lang natin gawin, descriptive statistics, frequency, yung mode ay naragdagan na siya. Pwede mo nang gawan ng median at saka range. Ayan. Saan sila pwedeng gamitin? Yung median and range. No? Pwede nang gamitan yung mga ordinal variable. Ayan. So, what are examples of ordinal data? Examples are happiness on a scale of 1 to 10. Diba? How happy are you? Ayan. O kaya yung satisfaction from 1 to 10. Ay, ito pala. Satisfaction. Extremely satisfied, quite satisfied, slightly dissatisfied, extremely dissatisfied. So, ilan to? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4-point, Likert. Okay. Income, high, medium, low. Level of education, high school, bachelor's degree, master's degree, doctorate. Senior level at work, junior, mid-level, seniority level, junior, mid-level, senior. Okay? So, the ordinal scale naturally ranks variables into a meaningful order or hierarchy. Ayan. So, yung sinasabi ko pala kanina, yung low economic status, middle economic status, tsaka high economic status, yeah, they can fall under ordinal variables. Okay? Now, what are the descriptive statistics? Diba we demonstrated or we showed a frequency distribution table kanina. Tapos we said that mode, no? Yung mode natin is the most frequent, no, of the items. Now we have median and range, no? Hindi kasama si min, hindi pa kasama si min dito. Hindi pa natin siya kasama. So si mode, median, range, and frequency distribution. Okay. We are finished with mode. Let's say for example, no? You have numbers 7, 3, 4, 1, 7, 6. Which is the most frequent of the numbers? Si 7. Kasi twice siyang appear, 7 and 7. All other numbers, yung other numbers natin, once lang. Somebody is raising her hand. Yes, Danica?
Sir, question. Kasi
Yes.
medyo tricky po yung mean I mean, medyo tricky po yung median tsaka yung mode. Paano po mas madaling ma-identify yung median tsaka yung mode?
Hindi sila pareho, no? Kasi yung mode it's the most frequent, no? It's the most frequently occurring item, no? Median, as you will find out here, sabi niya, you have to arrange the data in order, like for example, from 0 or from the ano tawag dito, from the lowest number to the highest number. And then, sabi niya, arrange in order and pick the middle value. Kapag add ang numbers, like for example here, no? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ano ba, meron pang isa? 7. Madali bang kunin yung middle number kapag add number? Like for example, 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7. 5 is the middle number. Tatlo dito, tsaka tatlo sa kanan, di ba? So yung nasa gitna, yun ang median. Pero in this example naman, no, even numbers. So ang gagawin mo, kukunin mo yung parehong nasa gitna, tapos add divided by 2. No? So 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, 7. What's the median? Ang pinakagitna yung dalawa eh. So 4 plus 6 divided by 2. No? It's the middle number. Okay. Bakit kaya meron pang median, merong mean? O later on you will find out kung anong use nun. Kasi there are certain, although sa mga researchers natin, no, ang most common na ginagamit kasi yung mean. Okay. Pero sabi ko nga, yung mean ginagamit yan sa numbers. Eh dito hindi. Hindi. So si mean dito ano lang siya for the purpose of illustration, hindi pa siya kasama. Ang kasama sa ordinal si ano pa lang, si mode, median at saka si range. Now, what is range? Range is the difference between the highest and the lowest. Let's say, for example, one answered 5, another answered 1. So 5 minus 1. So the range is 4. Okay, can we proceed? So,
Yes po, sir.
Yeah, okay. So si mode, hindi siya kamukha ni median. Si mode is the most frequent. No? The median naman is the middle number. We will talk more of this when we talk of outliers. Like for example, kasi kung minsan when you compute for the mean, di ba? Like siguro ang mga sumasagot sa ano mo 4, 5, 4, 5. Tapos biglang may sumagot ng 1. Di ba ang layo? Di ba? Nang dahil sa 1 na yon, parang nadi-distort no yung average natin. Parang ang laki ng naging effect because meron siyang outlier na 1. So sinasabi ng mga experts kapag gano'n, you better use AVER, no, statistical technique. And you can use either yung mode o kaya yung region. Okay? Next. So let's have a frequency distribution, no? Kamukha lang nung kanina. Ito naman, it's a frequency distribution. Pain rating naman to. Pain. No? So, frequency distribution describes usually in table format how your original data are distributed with values expressed either as a count or a percentage. Now, let's say, for example, on a scale of 1 to 5, no? How do you rate no, yung painful experience ng mga tao? Okay? So, yung sumagot ng 1, 26, yung 2, 12, 3, 60, 4, 76, 5, 85. Pwede rin siyang percentages. If I ask you, ano yung mode? Mode is what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Dito sa 5, no? Kasi meron siyang nakuhang 85. It is the most frequent. Okay? So the mode and the median are measures of central tendency. Ang isa pa doon is yung mean. It's another measure of central tendency. No? Okay. So the mode is the most frequent, no, in the data set. The median is the middle value in your data set. And it says here, in a data set where you have an odd number of responses, the median is yung nasa gitna. No? Pero when you have an even number, kukunin mo yung dalawang number sa gitna, add mo sila divided by 2. Okay? So it says here, in a data set with an even number of responses, the median is the average, no, of the two middle numbers. So you add the two numbers divided by 2. Okay. Now, it is important to note that with ordinal data, it may not always be possible or sensical to calculate the median. Baka hindi mo rin makuha yung dalawang middle numbers. Kasi sabi niya, for example, if your two middle values were agree and strongly agree, it would not be possible to calculate the mean. So in this case, you would have no median value. Okay, kung hindi numbers, no, yung data set mo. Okay? Another one, the final descriptive you can use for ordinal data is variability. Okay, variability identifies the highest and lowest values within your data set and tells you the range. Like yung kanina, yung sinabi natin, 5 minus 1. So the range is 5 minus 1 is equals to 4. Okay. Now for ordinal variable, no, like the Likerts, we can do this non-parametric test. Okay? So medyo foreign na sa atin itong mga non-parametric test na to. Pero ang masasabi ko lang, since we are considering the Likerts later as numerical variables, pwede mong gamitin ngayon yung mga parametric test, no, for numerical variables, apply mula sa ordinal variables. Okay? So, but nevertheless, let's have this. Now, like for example, Moore's median test enables you to compare the medians of two or more samples of data. Okay, so if you are comparing the medians, no, of two variables, you call that the Moore's median test. What about this one? What is a Mann-Whitney U test? Let us say, for example, compare the sum of rankings of scores across two independent data samples. An example given is the happiness scores of people living in Berlin compared to happiness scores of people living in New York. Okay, so this group of people and another group of people, you compare their happiness scores. Okay, another one. Ito naman, Wilcoxon match pairs signed rank test. So here, kapareho lang nung nauna, yung Mann-Whitney U test, mine-measure din niya yung happiness scores. But this time, sabi niya, all people living in New York. Pero, sinubdivide niya into those living in the city and those outside the city. Okay, another one. What about this one? Kruskal-Wallis H test. Ito naman compares the mean ranking of scores across 3 or more data samples. Like for example nga, no, you have the happiness scores of full-time, part-time, and unemployed. So how is this different from Mann and Wilcoxon? So lumalabas si Mann at saka si Wilcoxon, binary lang ang ginagamit niyang categorical. Diba like in Mann, Whitney, anong klaseng binary to? Berlin and New York. O ito naman, ano naman yung klaseng binary ng Wilcoxon? Yung those living in the city and those living outside the city. O this one, this Kruskal-Wallis H test, no? Ano ginagamit niyang categorical? Tatlo, like full-time, part-time, and unemployed. Okay, and another non-parametric test is the Spearman's Rule. Okay, ito naman parang yung sa chi-square natin. No? This explores whether there is a relationship between two ordinal categorical variables. Okay, next. Now we go to continuous, no, or numerical variables, and we are starting from the interval data. Okay, so the best example that we had is the temperature, no. So sinasabi natin sa interval, no, there is no absolute zero kasi zero has meaning. Okay, now what are the descriptive, no, statistics, no, that we use here? The frequency. So alam na natin yung frequency distribution, yung mode, yung median, and mean. Tapos meron siyang range. Tapos we have the standard deviation and the variance. So ano yung nagbago? Ano yung naragdag no compared dun sa dalawang naunang categorical variables? Now we are using the mean. The mean is the average. And we're also using the standard deviation. And we're also using the variance. Okay? So, sinasabi dito, the interval scale is a numerical level of measurement which, like the ordinal scale, places variables in order. Unlike the ordinal scale, however, the interval scale has a known and equal distance between each value on the scale. Like, for example, you have a number, age, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Gaano katanda si 16 over 15? 1. 16 minus 15. Gaano katanda si 12 over 11? 1. Also, 12 minus 11. Okay? So, let us have the descriptive statistics for interval variable. So, alam na natin yung frequency, yung mode, median. Now, you have the mean. No? Okay, so range, standard deviation, and variance are all measures of variability. And we have demonstrated range already. Diba? Yung range is 5 minus 1. Yung highest minus yung lowest. So sabi dito, you can calculate the range by subtracting the lowest value in your data set from the highest. Okay, now we will study standard deviation. Standard deviation calculates on average how much each individual score deviates from the mean. Variance looks at how far and wide the numbers in a given data set are spread from their average value. Okay, so let us demonstrate, no? Konting ano lang to konting computation lang. You may disregard it, no? Pero ano lang naman to. I just want to make a demo of the standard deviation. I'll share my screen. Do you see my Excel?
Yes, po.
Yes po.
Okay. So, isipin mo lang patalastas lang to. Okay. Example, if I have 5 numbers, no, I have 8, 9, 10, 6, and 7. Ayan. So, if I have these numbers, una, kukunin ko lang yung, ito yung numbers ko. Actually, it's X. Let us say X, my number. Ayan. I have 5, 8, 9, 10, 6, 7. Hindi ko lang gawin yung X na mayroong ano sa taas eh. Lagay ko na lang min, no? Ayan. How do you get the mean of this? Di ba kukunin mo yung total? Mean is the average. Ayan. So 40. 40 divided by 5. Ilan yon? 8 ba? 8. 8. Ayan. So ito yung mean niya. 8. Ayan. Tapos kukunin mo yung X minus mean. Yun yung X minus mean. Tignan natin. 8 minus 8. 0. 9 minus 8.
1.
There are people entering the room. Mayroon bang naghihintay o okay lang? Okay. Kapag ginad ko to, like for example here, 1 plus 2, 3, negative 2 tsaka negative 1, edi 0. So it doesn't make sense. So ang gagawin niya, si X minus mean is squared niya. Okay. So if you square, that means 0 raised to the 2, 1 raised to the 2. Di ba pag positive times positive, it's a positive. If negative times negative, it becomes positive. Okay? So, admit ko lang to. Okay. So, here, 0 times 0. Ayan. So, yung squared natin is this. Ayan. So, hindi na siya 0. Kasi pag itong ginamit ko, yung x minus min, 0. Pero ito, hindi. No? Pag inad ko to, 10 ang makukuha ko. Okay? So, ang variance, ito yung variance. Variance is 10 divided by 5. Ayan. The variance is 2. No? Pero yung standard deviation, kukunin mo pa yung square root. No? Standard deviation, kunin mo pa yung square root of the variance. Yan, hindi ko na alam to kung paano kunin yung square root. So, i-excel na lang natin, no? Okay, madali lang naman yan. Square root of 2. Ulit. Equals square root of 2. Yan, so 1.41. That's the standard deviation. No, okay. Our statistical software can do this, no, the standard deviation. Okay? So patalastas lang 'yon. I'm going back to my PowerPoint. Nasaan na 'yon? Okay, so now I go to the statistical test for analyzing interval variables. No, nandito na tayo sa numbers. And you will find out, no, ito yung nandun sa syllabus natin kanina. So, these are t-test, Anova. Ito naman yung persons R correlation at saka yung simple or multiple linear regression. Okay. Sorry, it's the simple linear regression containing both, no, numbers. So again, t-test to compare the mean values of two data samples. Example, you're comparing the math score of the male students and the female students, or you are comparing the math score of students from public and students from private. Ayan. What's a Motorola? Yes. Camel, please. Okay. Next, what about an Anova? Now, if you're using the comparison of math scores, no, of a categorical variable with more than two categories, like for example, you have based on nationality, let's say Asian, American, Hispanic. No, let's say for example, you have Asian students, American students, and Hispanic students. Okay, so you have three categories of a categorical variable. In that case, you use what? Anova. Okay, and then since we're dealing with continuous or numerical variables, for interval variables, we're using the correlation. We're studying the relationship. Let's say for example, is there a relationship between a person's income range and their IQ score? Kapag tumataas ba yung kanyang income, tumataas din ba yung kanyang IQ? Ayan. Now, class, when we talk of correlations, no, meron din kasi tayong tinatawag na spurious correlation. So, not all things that go together in the same direction, they are correlated because there are what we call also the spurious correlations. No, like for example, sabi mo, kapag tumataas ba yung sales ng margarine, no, tumataas din ba yung score sa mga national exams? O baka naman hindi sila correlated. They may go in the same direction, pero no, they are called the spurious correlation. Okay. I'll give an example of those. No? Ayan. Let me share this. This is an example of a spurious correlation. Sabi niya, US spending on science, space, and technology correlates with suicides by hanging, strangulation, and suffocation. Diba, they almost go in the same direction, but are they correlated? This is a spurious correlation. Diba? Pag tumataas ba yung spending ni US kay science, space, and technology, tumataas din ba yung suicides? Yeah. That's a spurious correlation here. Number of people who drowned by falling into a pool. Is this correlated with the films of Nicolas Cage? Or if you look at the graph, they're almost the same. No? So you can say that are they correlated? No, this is a spurious correlation. Another one here. Divorce rate. No? Is it correlated with the consumption of margarine? Ibig bang sabihin kapag mas maraming consumption of margarine, divorce rate is increasing also. So these are examples of spurious correlations. Okay? Now I go back to the levels of measurement. And lastly, of course, you have here the simple linear regression. Okay? So yung independent variable mo is a number, and then the dependent variable is a number also. Okay. Next. The last one will be the ratio variable. No? And for the ratio variable, how is it different from the interval variable? The only difference is there is an absolute zero. Okay? And for the descriptive statistics, since this is the highest level of measurement, gagamitin niya lahat from the first, like the frequency, if you see here, the mode, the median, the mean, range, standard deviation, variance, and coefficient of variation. So this one is a new one, the coefficient of variation. We will demonstrate this when we go to the software. Okay, so what are examples of ratio variable? We have them here. You have the weight, the number of employees, the speed in miles, the length in centimeters, age in years, income in dollars, and sales amounts. Ayan. Now, what are the descriptive statistics for ratio variable? As I mentioned, you have the frequency, everything, the mode, median, mean, the range, standard deviation, the variance, and the coefficient of variation. Okay, what are the statistical tests? Same, no? Same with the interval variable. You have the t-test, the Anova, the person's R or the person's correlation, and the simple linear regression. Now, this is very important. Kasi mamaya sabihin mo, oh sir, ba't ginagawan mo ng regression, Likert scale yan? Diba kasi sabi ko kanina, yung mga Likerts are ordinal. Diba, hindi naman sila ginagamitan ng mga t-test. Hindi naman sila ginagamitan ng mga regression, ng mga correlation. Pero gagamitin ko sila. Kasi I'm saying here, in some cases, the measurement scale for data is ordinal, but the variable is treated as a numerical or a continuous variable. No? You know why I am including this? Kasi nangyari na rin to, no? Sa dami ng defense na naupuan ko. Kumisa kasi biglang may magtatanong, oh, ba't mo ginagamitan ng yan? Sabi nung isang professor, nung isang panelist. Eh di ba ordinal yung mga Likert scales? Ba't ginagamit mo sila sa regression? Etong sagot. And this is supported by literature, guys. This is supported by literature. In some cases, the measurement scale is ordinal, but the variable is treated as a continuous variable. Kasi sinasabi ng panelist, no, don't use regression. These are Likert scales. Likert scales are ordinal variables. No, sir. Ito ang sabi ng literature. No, the variable can be treated as a continuous. Okay? And it is worth noting that how we categorize variables is somewhat of a choice. While we categorize gender as a binary or a dichotomous, sinasabi mo nga, no, you can argue no, that gender may have more than 2 categories. So sabi dito, arguing that gender is complex variable involving more than 2 distinctions. Okay, that